and welcome back to another episode of the Sanctified Podcast, the show where we explore the lives of various saints throughout history and learn about what they did and how we came to recognize them as saints today. Today, we're going to explore the life of Saint Joseph of Cupertino, a levitator with a meddling childhood. Joseph was born in 1603 in the town, you could probably guess, Cupertino. Cupertino is a part of the Nardo diocese and it's near Naples, Italy. Joseph's family struggled with money and he was actually born in a shed behind his home, though for 1603, that's not as bad as it would be today, but I'm sure not ideal either. And sadly, his father passed away when he was just young, and his mother was kind of abusive. Now, whether it was because he misbehaved that his mother abused him, or his mother abused him so he misbehaved, we don't know exactly, but we know that he was known to have a little bit of a temper, and that he was a fairly meddlesome kid. And we also know that he was a little slow in slow thinking. And people walking through Cupertino would say that they'd see Joe, they'd just cross paths, and it really wasn't that uncommon to just kind of see him staring blankly ahead, mouth wide open, just apparently not really any sort of thought going on. He's just enjoying the weather. Now, Joe is by no means the most popular guy in town. If anything, maybe a little bit more the opposite of that, but he didn't let it stop him from trying to apply himself. He tried to be a cobbler, a shoemaker, but he didn't quite have the dexterity for it. He attempted to join the Franciscan order, but was, oddly enough, rejected when he first asked to join. He was accepted into the Capuchins, not the monkeys, but this didn't last terribly long. After 8 months, they kindly asked him to leave because he just couldn't seem to do anything right. He would drop dishes when he was told to carry them and clean them, and he just kept forgetting the tasks that he was told to do right after he was given the assignment. Without anywhere else to go after being asked to leave, he went back home. His mom wasn't too thrilled that he was back. I mean, he was a young man at that point, and she felt that he should be taking care of himself. But she did manage to get him a job as a servant at the local Franciscan monastery, which was pretty fortunate for Joe. The Franciscan monks gave him a friar's habit to wear, and they had him take care of the horses and mules, which was very hard work. He was carrying heavy buckets of grain and water, and cleaning up after everything all day. Maybe it was because of the hard work, or maybe because of the dedicated people around him. Whatever the reason was, Joseph began to change his ways around this time. His temper settled, he became more humble, and he was getting better and better at complicated tasks. He was also praying more and performing self-penance. Seeing this change, he was finally invited into the Franciscan order in 1625, and he began to study for ordination into priesthood. He worked really hard on his studies, and he was recognized as a very good and devout friar, but he still struggled with retaining knowledge from his studying. Because of this, he was ordained as a deacon because he couldn't pass all of the tests that he was given. But with persistence and devotion, he was finally ordained as a priest March 28th, 1628. But oh boy, what a priest he was. People attending his masses and people praying with him said that they saw him levitate. And this wasn't just like a handful of times where it was reported with just like a few people. There were over 70 occasions when people said that they saw Joseph levitate. And it's not even like a few inches off the ground. He was fully airborne in some cases. But supposedly, Joseph didn't even notice that this was happening right away every time. Sometimes he would be kind of caught off guard when he noticed that his feet weren't on the ground anymore. He was so devoted and faithful that he was even quoted saying that the troubles of this world are nothing but the play battles children have with pop guns. In other words, our problems are not really worth fretting over because there's much more in store for us later on. One time, at a mass near Christmas time, the choir was singing Christmas carols, and Joseph was said to have soared into the air and knelt mid-air by the crucifix in prayer. The people witnessing this came over to him immediately, and he actually gained quite a following through events like this, and people were endlessly seeking him out for life advice, confessions, and just how to live a more devoted life in general. Another famous account of Saint Joseph's levitations is from the time a Spanish ambassador visited him and told his wife about the man who was just like Saint Francis of Assisi. She wanted to meet Joseph too because that would be awesome. So she asked to meet him in his church. Well, when Joseph opened the doors and saw an image of Mary, he was lifted 10 feet off the ground and flown over to this image of Mary. And there he prayed. And when he finished, he flew back to the doors and left the church. So it doesn't sound like the poor woman ever got a chance to speak to Joseph, but I'm sure it was more than enough to just see that happen. And that story came from several eyewitnesses, and those all gave their recounts as part of the canonization process for St. Joseph. Eventually, it became a little bit much, all this levitation and everything. So other friars and people higher up in positions of authority in the church decided to pull Joseph away from the public eye. They felt that he was being disruptive during masses and other services, so they didn't want to distract everybody else going for prayer. I think they were just a little bit jealous. But it's also worth mentioning that at this time, many people thought that levitations were signs of being connected in some way to evil spirits, though that could also just be people justifying why this devout person can levitate while I can't, because they think, oh, if they can, I should be able to, but that's not really how it works. But in any situation, there's always doubters for everything. So I don't think it discredits Joseph's stories. I mean, there's so many eyewitness accounts that it's just too much evidence to say that he didn't levitate. But Joseph didn't complain about this new life, because this meant that he had more time to be alone in prayer and more time to talk to God. So he was pretty darn happy. While he was in his new secluded life, he adopted the practice of asceticism, and he would only eat solid foods twice a week. But even that wasn't enough. He would go so far as to add bitter tasting powders to his meals to make them even worse. And he lived like this until his death, September 18th, 1663. So there were years that went by where Joseph was just eating minimal solid foods, and anything he would eat, he wouldn't allow himself to enjoy it because he wanted to just focus on his devotion to his faith. He didn't want anything to distract him from that. He didn't want to be in prayer and then be like, oh, I'm really looking forward to this stew tonight. Like, he wants to focus on his prayers, on being closer to God. Now, obviously, after his death, a lot of people were saying, well, he clearly performed miracles. We all saw it with the levitation and everything. But it took a little while for him to even be beatified. Joseph wasn't beatified until 1753, almost 100 years after his death, and he was beatified by Pope Benedict XVI. And then he was canonized in 1767 on July 16th, and that was by Pope Clement XIII. He's now the patron saint of aviators and flying, which I'm sure was added after the canonization process because obviously that didn't exist in 1767, as well as the patron saint for studying and for those with mental handicaps. He's also the patron saint of Cupertino, which we probably could have guessed. St. Joseph's feast day is September 18th. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. So what are your thoughts on Saint Joseph of Cupertino? What are your thoughts about all the levitations that he did and the eyewitness accounts? Have you found his story interesting? And I look forward to learning about your thoughts on St. Joseph. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the channel, you can subscribe, download the episode, like, comment, share it with your friends, or send me a suggestion on a saint that I can check out by emailing me at sanctifiedpodcast@proton.me. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and more. Just search for the Sanctified Podcast, and I should have some episodes uploaded there. Take care and have a wonderful day.